Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I have a very simple monochromatic painting of the Italian singer Mina. This artwork is originally from the cover of the Piccolino album released in 2011. A very beautiful, minimalist, and modern portrait that I wanted to study as a painting. To start off, I'm only going to be using just two colors, ivory black and titanium white. And for my brushes, I'm going to be using a number of natural and synthetic filberts. I won't be using any medium, just a few drops of paint thinner later on towards the end. I'm using a small 10 by 10 inch canvas that I've wet sanded and gessoed to a fairly smooth surface. And once that was dry, I applied 2 coats of gesso that I've mixed with ivory black and raw umber acrylic paints. This was to create a warm, grayish background color that's going to act as my imprimatura, or first layer of paint. I then outlined the important features of the face gently with a graphite pencil. Now I'm going straight on the canvas with ivory black paint, straight out of the tube as is. No thinners, no medium, no oil. I'm also using a natural hog bristle brush here at this stage. I'm not using any thinner because it's not something that's always necessary to use. The consistency of the ivory black is very nice and smooth and goes on very easily. And since this is a single layer painting, I don't need to create a thinned out underpainting sketch for this specific portrait. That means I can directly apply the paint onto the canvas straight out of the tube without any alterations. Having blocked in the left-hand side of the portrait, I decided to add just a few drops of paint thinner now to my palette so I can get the ivory black to be a more manageable consistency and start using my smaller brushes for finer details around the eyes, nose, and lips. However, at this stage I'm still only concerned with blocking in general shapes and not the super fine details. I'll be saving the finer details towards the very end of the painting process. Those who have more experience in painting will tell you that when painting directly, or in an Alla prima wet-on-wet technique, you should load the brush with as much paint as possible to avoid having to go back and forth with repetitive brush strokes. This is because of a concept called brush economy, or economy of brush stroke, where you try to strategically establish your planes and cover as much surface area as possible with as few brush strokes as possible. And although that's a very useful and valid way of approaching single layer paintings, here I'm doing the exact opposite. Recently, I've been very interested in historic painting techniques where you build layers of very thin paint and have some of the underlayers show through to create a visual effect. This is something you often see in old master paintings, but even modern-day artists sometimes use this technique. That's why I painted the background a warm brownish gray color, so I can experiment and observe how much of that warmth would show through. So even though this is a modern portrait study, I deliberately wanted to paint thin and take my time playing with the brush, so I can see how thin and translucent I could get the paint to be. Blocking in the whites, I found titanium white to be way too thick and unmanageable straight out of the tube. Even though I'm using a natural hog bristle brush, which is the strongest and firmest type of brush I have, the paint was way too difficult to spread over the canvas. I know that titanium white is a very slow drying pigment, so I didn't want to add any more walnut oil and risk having a paint layer that would take weeks or months to dry. So, I decided to add just a few drops of paint thinner here initially for the blocking in stage, just so the paint reaches a more manageable consistency similar to ivory black. Another reason why paint can be slightly difficult to apply is that a gesso ground, or acrylic and gesso ground, is very absorbent, and that means oil paint on the brush does not slide easily across the canvas. This is why many artists prefer creating an oil layer or oil imprimatura, as it allows the paint to glide much easier and without having to rely on extra mediums or oils to reduce the viscosity of the paint. I'm now mixing a few shades of gray, a light, mid, and dark tone, and I'm going to apply the mid-tone gray first to blacken the areas where the background is exposed. I will then use the light and dark grays to further define any transitions or gradations. When blending, sometimes people have a habit of using their brush excessively to blur and soften an area when they're trying to achieve a gradation on canvas. But this can sometimes lead to a very dull or waxy looking portrait with skin that falls flat and looks amateurish. Instead, it's best to pre-mix the colors you want to apply in that area where changes are occurring and apply them in a sequential order to optically give the illusion of a gradation. Some people believe this technique in Alla prima painting creates the best transitions that look more full, more defined, and more painterly. Even though titanium white is an opaque color, I noticed how when spread very thin, some of the background color started to show through, toning the white down a bit and giving it some warmth. Painting near and around the features of the face, I wanted to follow the natural contours of the planes, because that is something I observe a lot of artists do to add realism to their portraits and give the face a sense of extra dimensionality. This was just to get practice, and perhaps not really needed, since there is no shadow to define any contours, and it is a 2D image. But still, when you look at the painting at an angle, you can see the brush strokes, and for some paintings it does look nice to see a patterned brush stroke. So here we are, a very simple but also very modern and impactful painting study. I recently had a gathering with my friends where I showed some of my most recent paintings, and this one seems to be everyone's absolute favorite. And I can see why. It's a very unique and striking portrait with the black against the white. And even though it is a very simple and minimalist painting, it's also very expressive, and I think that's what makes it very engaging and even mysterious. I really hope you guys liked this video. It was an absolute joy to make, and I will also have new videos coming out very soon on this channel, so please do subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next painting video.